and welcome to this episode of John's Motorcycle Rescue and Review. Today I am with another cool, classic Honda motorcycle. This time it is Honda's 1988 through 1991 NT 650 GT Hawk. In this video we'll talk a little bit about the history of the Hawk. We'll also look at the specs of the bike and talk about the performance of the bike. And in a little bit I'm going to gear up and we're going to take the Hawk out on the road and see what it's like to ride. So stay tuned for that. If you're like me and you like classic bikes from the 70s and 80s and 90s, please like and subscribe. I feature lots of classic bike content on this channel. I remember when the Hawk 650 debuted. To me, it is one of the most beautifully styled UJM type of motorcycles. I love the clean lines of it. I thought they did such a good job with the design of the tank and the tailpiece and even the frame. The single-sided swing arm was just such a hot item back in the late 80s, and it really looks futuristic today. Most people associate the single-sided swing arm that the Hawk has with the Ducati 916, but the Hawk had it back in the 80s. The Hawk was really designed to be a sporty, standard style motorcycle. There was even a race series for the 650 Hawk back in the day. Looking at the specs of the bike, the Hawk features a 52-degree, 647cc liquid-cooled, 3-valve per cylinder V-twin motor. The engine is fed by dual 36.5 millimeter Kian CV carbs. It's mated to a 5-speed transmission and it has chain final drive. The engine featured a 9.4:1 compression ratio. Claimed horsepower at the crank was 58 horsepower at 8,500 RPM, and claimed torque was right around 43 foot-pounds at 6,000 RPM. And at the rear wheel, that translated to right around 38 horsepower at the rear wheel and 31 foot-pounds of torque. Looking at some of the unique features of the Hawk featured an aluminum beam-type frame. It also featured the single-sided swing arm from the VFR race bike. In the late 80s, these were very racy components and not ones that you would expect to find on a bike in this category. Looking at the suspension on the stock Hawk, had non-adjustable front suspension. It was a conventional type unit. In the back it had a single shock with spring preload only adjustment. In performance testing by Cycle World magazine in 1988, the Hawk clocked off a 12.7 second quarter mile time at 102 miles per hour. It had a top speed of 115 miles an hour. The Hawk had a wet weight of 412 pounds. It featured a 2.9 gallon gas tank. The average fuel mileage on the Hawk was in the mid-50s. That meant you wanted to stop and fill up the Hawk right around 100 miles or so into the range. The limited range on the Hawk wasn't really an issue because usually after about 100 miles, people were ready to get off and stretch their legs a bit. In the braking department, the stock Hawk 650 had a single disc brake up front with dual piston calipers acting on that, and it had a large single disc brake out back with a single piston caliper acting on that. I want to say thanks once again to my friend Paul for letting me review this cool bike. It's such a privilege to get to review these classics. For you eagle-eyed viewers out there, you will recognize that a lot of the components on this Hawk are not stock. The front end on this bike is from a CBR954. That means it has the 954 clip-ons along with the fully adjustable front suspension and the huge dual disc brakes. So Paul has taken a bike that already handled great and made it handle even better. This front end is just phenomenal on this bike. Another thing Paul has done is put a VFR rear wheel on this bike. It is wider than stock and it really works together very well with the front end on the bike. And he has also put a Fox rear shock on there that's fully adjustable. So this bike is really set up optimally to handle well in the corners. So what is the Hawk 650 like to ride? I'm going to gear up, I'll bring the camera along, let's find out together. Let's ride. I am riding Honda's NT 650 GT Hawk, and I'm struck immediately by how narrow this bike is between my knees. It's got a very slim profile to it. This bike is modified with a Honda CBR954 front end. So the reach to the bars is further and the bars are lower than on the stock bike. But right away, even on this straightaway, even on the mild bends that I'm going on, it has very confidence-inspiring handling.
got the great sound from that 52-degree V-twin. I'm really struck with how easy this bike rolls into corners. It's just amazing. I've ridden several of the stock Honda 650 Hawks, and they already are a good handling bike, and the modifications that Paul has made to this bike just make it handle even better. This has a VFR 750 rear wheel on it, so it's wider than the stock Hawk rim. Ah, it's amazing. Wow. Yeah, this bike is set up just about perfectly for my weight, and the suspension is so nice. It's not harsh, but it's very well controlled. The power band on this bike is very flat, and it pulls nicely from low RPM on up through. There's not really a peak in the power band, but it definitely feels better above 5,000 RPM and really starts to come on strong as you roll it on above that. Beautiful. That's a tricky corner to get right. This thing would be so fun on a racetrack, especially a tight racetrack. And one of the gripes with the original 650 Hawk is that it handled so well and it was so easy to ride that the owners were often wishing for about 20 horsepower more. And these bikes are so easy to ride and so confidence inspiring in the corners that it definitely feels like they could handle more power than they have. And this bike with these mods makes that situation even more apparent. It handles better than the stock one. It's got the fully adjustable suspension, and this will be just a hoot on a racetrack. Man, that's fun. I have followed a friend on a Hawk 650, and on a curvy back road he was just able to go through the corners so much more quickly and confidently than I was on my bigger bike. And riding this bike, it just makes it so evident why these bikes are so popular. And just the handling is awesome. I wouldn't mind finding another nice example, one that's a little bit closer to stock for my personal bike. I think these are just such cool bikes. This bike also has the Two Brothers exhaust on it. Man, that's fun.
All right, man, what a lot of fun. This has to be one of the best handling bikes that I've ridden. It is so confidence inspiring and so easy in the corners. I would love to ride this bike around a racetrack and just explore the limits of the handling on this machine, but it's just fabulous. The upgrade to the brakes is also very evident, and this bike really stops well. Another upgrade that Paul has made to this bike is the Two Brothers pipe on here. I really like the sound of the exhaust. I think it sounds very nice, and it sounds a little bit like the VFR when you get on it. The 52-degree V-twin has a very unique sound to it, and to me it sounds great. A lot of these were used in the race series, and because of that, it's sometimes hard to find a good, clean, stock example on the used bike market. These bikes are somewhat of a cult classic. They've got a tremendous following, and they really are nice machines. I think Honda did such a good job out of the box with these bikes. They made a bike that is friendly enough that beginners can ride one of these with confidence. The Hawk is also entertaining enough that a jaded rider like myself can get on one of these and just enjoy it for what it is. Some of the complaints on the Hawk were the limited range from the fuel tank. It also had a somewhat hard stock seat. This one has been upgraded with a sergeant seat, and the seating is very comfortable on it. Another item on the wish list of Hawk owners was about 20 more horsepower. There are modifications available to boost the power output of the Hawk, and at that point it comes down to how much money you want to spend on your motorcycle. In summary, I think the Hawk is one of the prettiest designs to come out of Japan. I think it's such a beautiful motorcycle. It has a cult following. It has a great reputation for reliability. It has a very flat torque curve and an easy power band. It has a great sounding motor. It's a tremendously good handling bike and such a fun bike to ride. All right, I'd love to know what you guys think. If any of you out there have ever owned a Hawk 650 GT, please feel free to comment in the comment section below. As always, I hope you found this video entertaining and informative, and until next time, enjoy the ride. Ha 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 ha.